Good afternoon, everyone. Yate Eia Cheya Twitterinishledo Twahanapachin. My name is Carletta Chief, and I'm the director of the Indigenous Resilience Center. I am Bitterwater, born for near the water. My maternal grandfather is Mini Goats, and my paternal grandfather is Red running into the water. This is how I identify myself as a Dene woman. We're really excited to welcome you here today for the Native Voices in STEM. And this semester, the seminar series is focused on Indigenous food sovereignty. But before we begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the University of Arizona is on the land and territories of Indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, including the Tohono O'odham and the Pasco-Yaqui peoples. The University of Arizona strives to build sustainable relationships with sovereign Native nations and Indigenous communities through educational offerings, partnerships, and community service. The Native Voices in STEM is a seminar series that is co-sponsored by the National Science Foundation, NRT, Indigenous Food, Energy and Water Security and Sovereignty Program, the Controlled Environment Agricultural Center in the Department of Biosystems Engineering, the University of Arizona Sloan Indigenous Graduate Partnership, the Water Resources Research Center, the Indigenous Resilience Center, and the Office of Societal Impact. This seminar series, which we're so glad to have continued for several years now, highlights Native American scientists, engineers, educators, leaders, and social activists. It offers students an opportunity to network and learn about the research and careers of Native leaders in various fields. In addition, it provides training for our colleagues in our departments and our non-Indigenous allies to gain an insight on how to respectfully work with tribal communities. I'd like to introduce the two speakers today. The first speaker is Staci Emm. I'm pleased to have collaborated with Staci in the Native Waters on Arid Lands project, which included tribal colleges and several universities. Staci was raised on the Walker River reservation in generational farming and ranching, and is a member of the Yerington Paiute Tribe. She holds a master's in agriculture from Colorado State University and a bachelor's in journalism from the University of Nevada, Reno. Staci began her professional career with the University of Nevada, Reno, and was hired as a FRTEP agent serving 3 different tribes in Nevada, which include the Walker River Paiute, Pyramid Lake Paiute, and Duck Valley Shoshone-Paiute. She's nationally recognized for extension programs with tribes to assist them in agricultural business development. And she tailored the project People of the Land, Hopi People of the Land, American Indian Outreach and Assistance Project in the Southwest, and the Native Waters of Arid Lands and American Indian Outreach projects. She has over 19 years of extension experience in various areas such as business planning, financial management, Indian land and water rights, Indian land leasing, and niche marking. Currently, Staci's work focuses on Indian land tenure and how they affect agricultural productivity and rural businesses in the West. And she also has a program called Veggies for Kids. That's a youth nutrition program. She's very active in many of these tribal programs, including Nevada's Beginning Farmer and Rancher program. And so we're so delighted to have Staci here. Our second speaker is Reggie Premo, who is a member of the Shoshone-Paiute tribes of Duck Valley. And Duck Valley Reservation encompasses northeastern Nevada and southern Idaho. He's a descendant of the Tassawehe White Knife Band of Western Shoshone. Reggie was raised on a cattle ranch and currently grows alfalfa hay and assists local producers on the reservation with cropland development. Reggie's been employed by the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension Native programs at the Community Outreach Specialists based on the Duck Valley Reservation in Ahui, Nevada since 2010. Reggie's responsible for coordinating and scheduling educational activities regarding nutrition, organizational development, natural resources, and agricultural for constituents, constructing hoop houses for providing education and outreach for Nevada tribes and communities is a major part of his work. So without further ado, I'm really excited to have my friends here, my relatives from Nevada, Staci Emm and Reggie Premo, to talk about their work in Indigenous sovereignty. Thank you very much. Staci and Reggie.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, it took me a while to unmute. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. It's great to be here, and thank you, Carletta, for the invite. Like Carletta said, I've got 19 to almost 23 years working in extension, working with Indian tribes. I was hired into the University of Nevada, Reno to work with tribe. Right now, I do statewide ag programs, statewide tribal programs, and manage a county office. So there's a lot of different things that we do, but here today I want to talk to you about our project on the Walker River Reservation. So I'm also the project director for the federally recognized tribal extension program. The Walker River Reservation is about 323,000 acres. It is located close to the state line in Western Nevada, the state line with California. So one of the biggest things, and Reggie's going to talk a little bit more about our Hoop House program, but basically the Hoop House is a season extension tool that is used. And in Nevada, we're finding that it really helps with integrated pest management. We can control irrigation a little better, and it's a season extension tool. So we started on the Walker River Reservation through our FRTEP program to build hoop houses, and we have one at the Schurz Elementary School. We have one at the Boys and Girls Club on the reservation, the Senior Center, and then a community hoop house for a food sovereignty project that is basically on within the boundaries of the tribe's food sovereignty project that they just put together with CARES and ARPA funding. We go in and we build these houses, and our team goes, we try to build the right fit for the individual. So when we first started this way back, gosh, I'm going to say in 2010, we had the Utah State type of hoop house. And since then, we've kind of evolved. Reggie will talk about how he had to evolve on the Duck Valley Reservation to fit the environment. So these houses really need to fit the environment. On the Walker River Reservation, it's been unusually cool this year and we have a lot of water, but usually we run between, we barely go below 0 degrees. And then in the summer we have 2 to 4 weeks where we get over 100 degrees. So you'll see that this style of hoop house, which we have at Schurz Elementary School, basically we have to find a way to vent it when our temperatures get high. Now in 2021, we built those community hoop houses, but we went in and said, hey, what if we start building hoop houses for individuals? So on this specific reservation, we started building hoop houses for individuals. At that time, there was a discussion on how do we do this so that the individuals take management and ownership of that. And you'll hear us talk a little bit about that. So on the Walker River Reservation, there were flyers put out around the community. There was an application where we put in the application what they needed, what the resident was responsible for, and what our families were responsible for. We awarded the hoop house projects to the first 5 families that basically completed the application and signed into the program. And you can see this is a picture of, actually it's my father who's now retired, building a hoop house that went into production last fall on the Walker River Reservation. So why do we do this? And we have some programs that I'm going to talk about with the youth. But basically, we needed to find a way, and I think before COVID, we were trying to find a way to promote the healthy living, the eating, the wellness. When we went into COVID and we had all of these supply chain issues, the Walker River Reservation is not as geographically isolated as the reservation that Reggie's going to talk about today, but it still is, if you're a senior or an elder and you're trying to get to town, it can be difficult. The closest town is 23 miles away. There's a second town that's 32 miles away, but has 1 grocery store. Actually, the town that is 23 miles away has 1 grocery store. So you have to go 42 miles where you hit what we would call a Walmart. So, which has also a Safeway grocery store. So if you're not able to travel, then your access to fresh fruits and vegetables is limited. So one of the ways that we found to improve ownership and just access to fresh fruits and vegetables is to grow them themselves. So we started with the kids. So we're in the process. We do have a hoop house curriculum that probably needs to be updated and repiloted. But it did have some hands-on teaching for the kids to grow their own food. And we built that off of a program that I'll talk about in a few seconds called Veggies for Kids. So we learned about the water techniques, getting the youth in the hoop houses. I think one of the best stories is a kindergartner who disappeared from the playground, and they were looking for this youth at the school. And when they found him, he had tomato juice running down the front of his shirt because he'd gotten into the hoop house and was eating some of the cherry tomatoes. So those are the types of things that are so rewarding when you start working with youth in the school, showing them how to grow food and providing that education and that information that they can take that home with them. A summer program. So our Veggies for Kids program does have a summer institute, and we try to utilize the houses within the summer program, because one of the things that we've ran into with our hoop house programs, specifically with schools and some of the tribal department operations, is schools aren't in session in the summer. So how is that hoop house going to be managed? And I think as we get into this program, management becomes a big, I wouldn't say issue or problem, but it becomes a concern that needs to be planned for and a strategy needs to be made for. So Veggies for Kids. And this is a curriculum that we built with Nevada tribes. Specifically, we have a kindergarten curriculum. If you're interested, I can email that to you. It's not ADA compliant, so we're working on getting a website up that will be ADA compliant, and it's 12 lessons. And basically it works with the kids to improve their vegetable intake, to increase water intake, and to increase physical activities. We bring in tribal elders in some of the lessons to talk about tribal histories, tribal ecological knowledge, and some of the traditional foods. We also use the Paiute language in this, and the curriculum is set up with sheets where you can integrate whatever tribal language you need to use into the program. We've had a lot of success with this program. The kids really like it. The instructors really like it. I think one of our forward-thinking projects is we're working on early childhood development now. Instead of going up from 1st through 5th grade, the tribes in Nevada wanted to focus on that early childhood development. So agriculture field trips. And I think this is one of the things in the FRTEP program that we have been able to do for the Walker River Elementary, or the elementary school on the Walker River Reservation, is to provide those experiences to the kids to go different places, to see where their food comes from. In this particular, in these photos, they toured a dairy that's in the town right next to the reservation. I think the other important thing that is really becoming, has been moved to the forefront of a need because so many people are interested in it, is our traditional and medicinal foods. So as we started on the Walker River Reservation, right now we're looking at what does that look like for all 20 federally recognized tribes in the state of Nevada. What are our traditional plants that we have out there? What are our medicinal plants? Last year, we started a food sovereignty project on our desert farming initiative to start propagating some of those traditional and medicinal plants. We are finding now, a year later, that we have a list. Some of them we can propagate, some of them take years to propagate. Pine trees aren't one that just pop up. But the other thing that has hit us is a chemist has told us that if we propagate these traditional and medicinal plants in one environment, say in Reno, where our ag experiment station is, and we want to transplant that plant up to Reggie on the Nevada-Idaho border, that we may lose some chemical properties of the plant. So we're currently looking at opportunities to research that, because our Nevada tribes are really interested in documenting and being able to provide a food source based on those traditional plants. And now after COVID, the medicinal properties of those plants are becoming very, very important. So our other project that we have is Veggies for Seniors, and this is basically a food security issue. We do distribution out of the county office right next to the reservation, and we serve the Walker River Reservation and the Pyramid Lake reservations. And we provide fresh fruits and vegetables every other week to seniors over 65 years and older, or those individuals on the reservation that have a disability. We provide them with a bag of fresh fruits and vegetables with some educational information about recipes that they can cook utilizing the food that they have, the properties of the vegetables, and we provide a lot of things that maybe a senior on the reservation has not even had, like let's say jicama, for example. We have some elders that had never tried jicama before. We have some elders that had never really paid attention to kiwi and things like that. So we try to integrate those recipes by giving them the staples of what we know they're going to want, which is berries. You know, berries are a big hit, and those are always requested, the strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. But we also try to integrate in things that maybe they don't have access to because the one grocery store that they go to the next town over doesn't have. So I will tell you, this is also one of our most successful programs. We just put in for funding. I'm hoping we can continue because our funding ends the end of June. It's a 2-year grant cycle. I don't know what we're going to do, because these seniors, when I was delivering on the Walker River Reservation, as we had a staff turnover, they track you down. They were tracking me down via Facebook. They were calling my parents. So because they didn't get their bag. So we have a community of our seniors, our elders, that have become very accustomed, and they're just a great population to interact with. So right now we have 50 bags, 50 seniors that we deliver to on the Walker River Reservation. We do use everything in the hoop houses, the community hoop houses. We do put that out to our Veggies for Seniors program. So with that, that is my presentation today, and I definitely want to give Reggie some time to talk about his full-blown program on the Duck Valley Reservation.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks.
Okay. Let me move this to one side. Actually, I'm not on the first screen. Let me get over. There we go. Oh. Okay. Nananihat, Reggie Premo, Nadosawi Sosoni, Nadokavari. I just want to say greetings to everybody, all your relatives. My name is Reggie Premo. I am from the Dosui Band of Western Shoshone, located on the Duck Valley Reservation on the Idaho-Nevada border. I do live on the Nevada side, about 4 miles from the border. I am the Community Outreach Specialist for the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension's Native Programs, and I'm going to share on the Nevada Shoshone Tribe's Hoop House program. And this is going to change because this program is mostly funded by what was Barrick Gold Mines, and now it's Nevada Gold. So they've included a couple other tribes in there, Paiute and Shoshone. So they're just going to be calling it Tribal Hoop House Program. So I'm going to share a little bit on where this came from. So the first hoop house that we know of that was built on any Nevada reservation was built at the Oahe schools on our reservation in Duck Valley in 2010. Now that was the year that I started with Extension. Randy Emm, Staci's father, he called me. I hadn't been hired yet, but he knew I was going to be coming on sometime that year. So he invited me to participate in building this hoop house. And he told me that we're probably going to be building a lot of hoop houses over the years. And at that point, I didn't know what a hoop house was. So I had to be educated. And a lot of people in that year or that time frame did not know what a hoop house was. So we built that at the Oahe School early in 2010, and we didn't finish it. And we actually got snowed on, so we had to come back 2 or 3 weeks later and finish. But it's a 20 by 32 foot hoop house. The manufacturer is Oregon Valley out of Aurora, Oregon. And then in 2012, we leveraged funds from Barrick Gold to build 15 hoop houses on 8 tribal communities. And they include the Duck Valley Reservation, where I'm from, the Tamoak Western Shoshone tribes of Elko, Wells, South Fork, and Battle Mountain, Yamba Shoshone Tribe, Ely Shoshone Tribe, and the Duckwater Shoshone Tribe. So the picture there is one of those 15 hoop houses, and that one is in the South Fork tribe. You can see the upper right photo is the frame of that unit, and they're 14 by 24 foot wide. So we did go to each tribe, and it took 2 years because we started late in 2012. So we finished up in the summer of 2013 to get all 15 hoop houses put up on the different reservations. Just keep in mind now that reservations are far apart. I mean, Duck Valley is 100 miles from Elko, and then the other 3 Tomoke tribes are like 50 miles apart from each other. And then we have 3 other tribes, the Yamba, Ely, and Duckwater, who are probably in excess of 100 miles apart. So it takes a long time to visit these tribes, but so that's why it took so long to build them. And then we had a lot of in-kind from each tribe, volunteers from the community or from programs, included youth and family members to help put these up. It was a great hands-on experience for everybody, and everybody was really happy to receive their hoop houses. And most of the hoop houses that we built are tribally run and managed. Usually their environmental departments will oversee them. Sometimes the seniors program will. The communities of Duck Valley, Yamba, and Duckwater mostly have hoop houses that are family operated and owned. And in 2014, we met with Barrick Gold, and we put together an ongoing effort to educate the communities that receive these hoop houses, and that's where the Nevada Tribal Hoop House Monitoring Program started. And we provided educational workshops conducted each spring, summer, and fall months. And actually, another colleague of ours, Dan Cohen, and I will be going to our spring workshops starting next week. We'll be starting here in Duck Valley, moving on to the Tomoke tribes and to the Yamba, Ely, and Duckwater tribes the week after. So some of the things we talk about in these workshops, they can include soil testing, how to take a soil sample, where to send it, how much it costs, types of crops to grow during the season, the cool season versus the warm season. If you're going to direct seed into the ground, you need to know the soil temperature, and we have information on all that. Irrigation systems. We found that drip irrigation works really well inside of a hoop house versus sprinkler. Some growers prefer to water by hand, and that's their preference. That's how they want to irrigate. That's good. When to harvest, how to harvest, succession planting, transplants versus direct seeding, and a lot of other topics. And of course, a lot of the people that come to these workshops, they share their knowledge, or maybe some of them aren't doing very well, so they want to know why this isn't happening, or why is my zucchinis not producing. And there'll be another participant in there say, well, this is why, because I've gone through that. So it's really a learning experience for everybody, and it's really informational. So in 2018, our programs began constructing larger commercial size hoop houses for these 8 communities. And we went with Oregon Valley. That was the very first one that was built at the Oahe School. But we found that for the larger size hoop houses, these are probably one of the better models out there. The steel frame is a lot thicker. The pipe is a larger diameter. And in Nevada, as Staci knows, we have some really strong winds. So I didn't show any pictures, but when we first started the PVC style hoop house from Utah State, they didn't last. The plastic PVC hoops were just flexible. So they just kind of blew with the wind, and we used thinner plastic at the time. So the wind just ripped them to shreds and pieces on a lot of the communities. So we just stopped using them. That was in 2011, by the way. So these Oregon Valley units, the bigger ones are 20 by 48 foot. So in 2018, we built one of those in Duck Valley, and a 20 by 20 foot unit. And we used our summer youth program. We used the kids to give them some hands-on skill, and so they can learn the skills how to build a hoop house. And that's the pictures in the upper right. They're preparing the site, getting all the high points off of that area where the large hoop house is going to go. Then you can see them, they're driving in the ground posts in that next photo down. And of course, all these young boys, they want to be strong. They want to impress the girls that are there. And so they're all He-Man and pounding in these posts. And then sometimes they'll get tired and one of the girls would jump in and outdo them. So they had fun and we really enjoyed working with them. And that bottom corner photo is us putting on the plastic. And you can see in the background is the 20-foot hoop house is already completed. It took us, I think, 4 days with the kids to finish both of those hoop houses. And they kind of rotated in and out because with the summer youth program, they're working with numerous tribal departments. So they kind of went back and forth and came to help us throughout that week. And then that's the photo of them, or some of them, when we finished with their supervisors. So, and then the two photos on the left are from the South Fork tribe. We helped them build their units in 2020. And we also built the large hoop houses for the Battle Mountain Shoshone and the Yamba Shoshone tribes. And also the Ely tribe last year, we built 2 of the 20-foot hoop houses for them. We started early, like around this time, April, and then we got snowed out. So we had to come back in June to finish that one. I just wanted to share some of the success stories. I mean, there's a lot more than I'm going to talk about here. There are a lot of good growers out there who have family generations who have been gardening. So I'll start with Kim Townsend. She's from the Duckwater Reservation. She owns and operates her own family hoop house, and she's really impressed all of us. Not only for providing for her family, but she gives a lot of produce away to her community. And she's also one of the very few, if not the only one that we know that can grow year round. She'll grow herbs in the winter months. And I think the reason that she did this, because when she was about to receive her hoop house, she got prepared. She actually hired a local person with a backhoe that went in there and he dug down. Well, she had him dig down about 4 feet down under the surface. And she knew that Duckwater has some really harsh winds. So with that excavated material, she piled it on the side where the wind comes in from. So her hoop house is really protected. And I think by digging down that deep, it insulated it. So she is able to grow year round. So she knew what she was doing. Esther Bertram is from the Yamba tribe. She's another one that really does well. And she shared a story with us not long after she got her hoop house. She raises some farm animals and rabbits. She actually wintered her rabbits in her hoop house. I mean, just to see how they do. She was kind of worried they might rip up the plastic, but she tried it and it served 2 purposes. One of them was it was warm for them in the winter. She didn't have to worry about them freezing. And it also provided fertilizer for her coming growing season. And I think she got that from one of our hoop house workshops that, if you're going to use fresh animal manure, just make sure that you don't apply it before 90 days of your harvest. So she made sure to get the rabbits out of there in the early spring. And she does really well with her produce. Sasha Jones is from the Duck Valley Reservation, where I'm from. She's another person that just has a really impressive growing season each year. She's also a very strong supporter of our food sovereignty movement here on the reservation. She has a huge outside garden that she just seems to expand each year. And and she cans and preserves, so she adds value to her products. And that's Sasha on the bottom left in the doorway there. And the 2 photos to the right is her garden. And Esther is the one holding the produce. And then Kim Townsend is the one in the upper right, and her hoop house is under that. South Fork is Dallas Smiles. Her job is in the environmental program for their tribe. And she now oversees the 2 smaller hoop houses that we built in 2013 and the larger 48-foot hoop house we built in 2020. Now theirs is a little different than others. Other people grow directly into the ground. They have when they first started and were really impressive, but it takes a lot of work. They couldn't really use a garden tiller. They had to use a shovel to turn over the ground because there are so many river rocks that are underneath the surface. So they improvised in the last 3 or 4 years and started going with these grow boxes. You can see in the picture, and that's her in the upper right in the pink, the grow boxes under those. And yeah, they do really well. And she also did research on her grow boxes. And that's not completely all soil in those boxes. She started out with cardboard and then put in a lot of tree branches and then topped it off with straw hay. And she made sure the hay was clean, no weeds in it, and then put the soil on top of that. So that is really doing well for them. And they had a really impressive grow last season. And then Wesley Allison, he's from the Ely tribe, and he's relocated to Duckwater because that's where he's from. So he does great. He and his wife do a lot of canning and preserving, and they also give away excess produce to the community. And then that's him down in the center there with the blue shirt on. And then the last one I have here is my mom, Yerington Paiute. I believe she is the eldest person growing in hoop houses or gardens. She started gardening way before I was born. So she's been at it a while, and she's always just eager and anxious to get going. And here in Duck Valley, we've been getting snow like for the last 2 weeks every morning, and we thought spring was here, but the snow keeps coming. So she's getting anxious every day, wondering when that's going to stop so she can get to work. But her hoop house is that's her on the bottom left, there on the left side there. And then her hoop house is the next picture over, which is actually one of the very first hoop houses funded by NRCS. We have 6 NRCS funded hoop houses on Duck Valley. And then we have the Duck Valley CARES Act project, which in 2020, I approached our tribal business council with a proposal to build 50 family hoop houses and also some grow boxes, and we haul topsoil to each of the sites. And this project started in the summer of 2020, and we completed a year later, the following summer. And I did a little bit different. I figured 50 hoop houses, if we went with Oregon Valley or another manufacturer, it was the price was gonna be astronomical. So instead, I ordered most of the material from Home Depot, and we bent our own pipe. I just followed the same design as Oregon Valley, it's just a smaller version. So these hoop houses are 14 foot wide by 20 foot long, perfect for a family. And yeah, 50 families on the reservation now have hoop houses. So currently we have 73 hoop houses in Duck Valley. 7 are operated by programs like the Oahe Schools, Tribal Senior Center, Presbyterian Church, and our extension programs. And the remaining are all family owned. When Randy and I started doing the workshops for the different tribes, we saw that early on that families that own their own hoop house were more likely to succeed. So that's why we gravitated towards that in Duck Valley. And I think Yamba and Duckwater are starting to do the same. And I also put in for another proposal just recently through our tribe, through ARPA, and to fund 3 of the larger 48-foot Oregon Valley hoop houses. And one of them is going to go to our tribal behavioral health program. And that's to assist their clientele who are, going through hardships like alcohol and substance abuse, domestic violence or recidivism. Another is going to go to our food distribution program. And the third one, we're looking at putting on one of our off-reservation tribal ranches. And I think the tribe or people are wanting that to be like a tourism, agritourism place. So that's why we're targeting that hoop house to go there. And then finally, I just wanted to share this, and I'd like to share this a lot in the workshops that we go to. This is a couple of elders that have really inspired me and the hoop house and the food sovereignty movement. It's the late Beverly and Earl Crum, my auntie and uncle, and they shared stories. And a while back, we held a conference in Fallon called Beyond the Hub, where we invited Nevada tribes to come to this conference and share stories. And I really wanted the Beverly and Earl to travel there. I was going to take them, but Beverly says, "No, Reggie, we're old. We don't travel anymore." Then she goes, "But what are you looking for?" So I interviewed them. I recorded them, their stories. And one of the stories that really stood out is how it used to be in the older days with families and gardening. And she mentioned that we had to go up to the hills and find a spring that ran year round in order to water crops, because in the valley, here in Duck Valley, now this was prior to 1939, because that's when the Wild Horse Dam was built. But before that, the Wahi River in the summer months would just dry to a trickle, so we couldn't get water. We had to go find a water source. And back then, they didn't have cars either. They had horses in wagons. So they had to load up a wagon, families and extended families, and go up to the hills and camp out for a week, prepare the site, plant their crops, and then figure out an irrigation system from that spring source, water those crops. Then throughout that summer, somebody had to go up and check on it all the time, because they didn't want animals getting in there and then taking their crops. She said some years they had abundant crops, some years they didn't. That's just the way it was. That's how the hardships people went through back then. So with that, I always like to share that with the younger people, especially those who are going to the store and buying junk food, or maybe buying produce that's not fresh as it's coming from a garden or a hoop house. So yeah, they continue to inspire me, even though they're not here. They're still here in spirit. And I always like to end my sessions with these two. And with that, I say, Eishinza, thank you. There is my contact information. And just want to thank you, everybody, Arletta and your staff.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much to Staci and Reggie for sharing about their work. And it's great impact and support for our relatives in Nevada. It's wonderful and inspiring to hear. At this time, I would like to open up for questions. So if you have a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask, and I'll try to also see if there are any in the chat as well. Kara?
I have a question. Thank you both so much for sharing this information. It's so encouraging and just really fun to hear all of these success stories. Reggie, I'm wondering if you have a recording or an article about your interview with what you learned and just some of that we had.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up during that last part.
Okay. I'm wondering if you have a recording or an article about your interview with your aunt and uncle. And it just sounds like they have so much knowledge to impart, and not to mention some probably really epic stories.
Yeah, the thing about that is I recorded them with an iPad. And when we got to the conference, nobody had the cords to hook up to the monitor, but we finally got it. Somebody had to run to Walmart real quick and get the right cord. But I lost that recording because it was on my iPad. And maybe somewhere up in the cloud, if I could retrieve it, I would, but I've been trying. And that was in 2015.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I do have a follow-up question. When you built the hoop houses just by going to Home Depot and getting the materials yourself, how well did that work? You know, it sounds like you were able to save money, but also have a successful hoop house project. Can you talk a little bit about the cost of doing it yourself from Home Depot and the amount of labor involved?
Yeah, for a similar size hoop house, like the 15 we built, that is from a manufacturer called Clearspan, which is Farm Tech. And back in 2012 and 13, those were about $1,800, which is probably double or triple from now. But the ones we built from Home Depot, I think they were around 1,200. And they're, like I said, they're just a miniature version of the Oregon Valley hoop houses, but the pipes are smaller. The pipes are actually the top rail of a chain link fence, so that's the same size, and they are durable. They are holding up very well. And then we use the thicker plastic cover. It's a 12 mil plastic with fibers woven into it, so it's really durable.
Great, thank you. We do have a question from Calder Beth, who is one of our Indigenous students, and he actually works with Six Rural Solutions, one of our Indigenous partners, and he's created a remote sensor for the temperature in the hoop houses for the tribal members. So that's his master's project. So Calder asks, thank you so much for this presentation. Do most of the hoop houses have concrete foundations?
No, they don't. They're all built on the ground. The main, I think the foundations are really for greenhouses. Greenhouses have controlled heating and cooling, fans and humidity control, all that. Hoop houses are mostly heated by the sun and the earth. And so you're really just extending the growing season by getting in there earlier and staying in there later, as if you were in a garden environment. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I see Carmen Melendra's turned on her camera, so have her ask her question.
Thank you so much, Carletta, for these amazing programs. I attend them all and am equally inspired by the variety of content, but this one in particular is so close to my heart because I'm a foodie and I love locally grown food, and I'm a big proponent of this work. As soon as I became the program manager for a project in which Carletta is a co-PI, I went to the Santa Fe Community College. I live in Santa Fe because I understood that they had a really great program, and they do. And one of the things that they discovered, and I wonder if you're having a similar, let's just say, issue, is that they go out to these communities and put up either hoop houses or, other types of greenhouses. And, in a short period of time, they aren't utilized for these purposes. Sometimes he says, Charlie Schultz, and I don't know if you know of him, but if you don't, the two of you should connect as educators and outreach proponents for this type of work. But they become like storage units and so forth. When they put them up in schools, especially like high schools, it's great, but the food is produced in the summer and the students are on vacation, summer vacation. So it's really the teachers that kind of then have to keep it up. And I was just wondering if you've encountered some of these issues, and if so, how have you been able to overcome them?
I can say that for the 50 hoop houses that we built, they were built during COVID. So, and our tribe at first wasn't going to allow us to do this project because of the threat of COVID. And so we just said, well, we're all going to be outdoors and this should be a good thing. But I think it was that same threat of COVID for 2020, 2021, where people were afraid. So there were a lot of the hoop houses that weren't being fully used. And now that COVID threat is lifted, when we're allowed to resume with our workshops, and that's our main emphasis, is to provide that information out there to get them to grow and share these stories, and a lot of pictures of some of the growers or the successes, just to inspire others.
I think that is a concern. I will tell you that one of the things that we need to do is get better at evaluating the impacts of the Hoop House programs and the management part. You're always going to have some unique situation that maybe leads to one hoop house or two hoop houses not being under production. But I do think that the benefits outweigh having one or two of those houses maybe not in production. Schools are tough because exactly what you said. We've tried to do a volunteer program. We've tried to do a student organization. And a lot of that work does fall back on the teachers. But be creative about that too, because you can grow and set timers for your irrigation systems where you're basically just going to pick. So, and those student groups have worked really well for us in the past. The problem is the kids get tired. So, they want to go enjoy their summers. So all of a sudden you'll notice your youth group just keeps dwindling as the summer goes on. So I think being creative and maybe interacting your elders with your students, because, or, you have that whole 30 to 50 age group that maybe aren't technically elders. They're not technically your young people, but they're willing to do some community service and some community work. And I think that leads to the overall management. We are trying to work on that. We're trying to increase, and we're trying to implement some food security evaluation measures where we can have individuals just get on their phone and answer 4 questions every month. How is your food this month? How's your garden doing? Any problems? That kind of stuff. And just submit that to us so that we have some evaluation to back up the impacts or the trials and tribulations of the program.
Great, thank you. I see a question from one of our Indigifuge trainees, Jackie Rybin. And Jackie's actually been working with Star School, which is an off-grid school near the Navajo Nation where they grow their own food. They have solar and they have their own well. And Jackie did her master's on gardening curriculum for Star School. Her question is for Staci. What school greenhouse maintenance strategies have worked best during summer months and breaks? Thank you both.
I think it goes back to that previous question. I don't think that you can just have, the kids aren't in school. So you've got to come up with a strategy that involves both adults and youth. And you're going to have to utilize both of them because sometimes your youth don't even have a ride to the school or can't access the school depending on geographic location. So what do all of those dynamics look like? And I know, if you can integrate youth, and I don't want to get to where we're entertaining youth, but if those youth are having a good time, they're going to show up. So, and how do you build those relationships and how do you interact your mentoring into that? Can you do a double whammy where you're growing fresh fruits and vegetables, but you also, it's part of a mentoring program so that you have those tribal histories and those tribal stories to those youth. And I think that's one of the things that has been beneficial in some of our programs.
Great. We have another question here by an individual, Jan Jerneka. He said, he or she, they said, where does the funding come from for the hoop houses?
Well, for the work that I do with the 8 tribes, that comes from Nevada gold mines predominantly, and also our extension programs. And then a lot of what I didn't share in the PowerPoint is there are some people that go out on their own and buy their own material, and we build them, because it can be quite challenging if you don't know how to build a hoop house. And we've been doing it for so long that even if it's a different manufacturer, we can figure it out really quick, and we'll help them put it up.
I think,
Great.
yeah, one of the
Go ahead,
things,
Staci.
the biggest problem, I think, with the funding mechanism is paying for the salaries. And, you know, there are costs of construction materials, but how do you pay the salaries of your team that goes out? And we've been very lucky to put it in the scope of work for our federally recognized tribal extension program. So it's one of the objectives in all of that. So like Reggie says, that's how we're able to access extension and to provide that through them. And then Nevada Gold Mines has provided some salary for Reggie to have a staff up there that works with him.
Great. Thank you so much to Staci Emm and Reggie Premo for their outstanding presentation. It's just so inspiring. I mean, 50 hoop houses in 1 year, that's just so amazing. I commend you for your work and all that you're doing, especially your curriculum as well, for our young children. And I think our students will learn from your work, and we really appreciate your mentorship and sharing your knowledge today. And we'll also have this seminar posted for the viewing for later viewing. So I want to thank you, Staci and Reggie, for your presentation and especially for your time today. I also want to thank everybody who joined today, who asked questions and engaged, and also the co-sponsors, Indigifuse, SEAC, the Sloan Partnership, IRES, and the WRCC, and Societal Impact. I want to invite you to attend the next seminar. It will be the last seminar for the semester, and it will be by our Indigifuse trainees on May 3rd at 12 p.m. Chantel Harrison and James Lee will be speaking about indigenized control of environmental agriculture. And they just held a workshop on Friday on indigiponics. So I'm really excited to hear about their work. And they've been working with Diné College and Star School on this work. And so I invite you to join us again. Please visit our website at resilience.arizona.edu. I invite you to join our listserv and learn more about what we're doing. And I hope to see you on May 3rd. Ahehe and Hagone. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Staci. Thank you, Reggie. Thank you, Carletta. This was amazing, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Chief, and thank you, Staci and Reggie. I will be in touch by email later this afternoon and tomorrow for the follow-up stuff, and you know how to reach me if you have any questions in the meantime. I might ask our student employees to reach out to you if there are any like recording hiccups and they don't know how to spell something. But otherwise, we'll be captioning and editing that video this week, and we should have it up next week if you'd like to share it or use it in any way.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much. Have the most lovely.
It's so wonderful to see you. I hope I can cross paths with you again. I know we're doing a lot of virtual meetings during COVID, and I got to hear early on about the work that you guys were working on the hoop houses. So it's really neat to finally see what happened, you know, at the end of the day, all the work that you were working on. I remember you guys were also doing some work on meat processing, I think it was.
Oh yes, we're still,
yeah.
we've got a mobile slaughter unit going, and we're trying to get it inspected, and then we just got funded for a large workforce development program. So yeah, we're in the middle of all of that too.
Yeah, and a lot of times people, when they think about food sovereignty, it's like usually associated with growing or agriculture. but there's a whole nother aspect of different types of food sovereignty with,
Right.
you know, different tribes like fishing, hunting, ranching.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really interesting too.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I just presented for IAC back in Oklahoma, and we had a tribe in the room that wanted to harvest deer. So they were very interested in the mobile type harvest setup because they wanted to do deer, but then that's not, you know, it's considered wildlife, so it's not under USDA inspection. And so it's a very interesting, you're exactly right. Those processing and distributions of traditional foods are, you know,
Mhm.
it's a different bailiwick than just plain food that we're doing with like beef and poultry and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know like in Arizona, a lot of people hunt, like family members that hunt. And just a really quick story, but I was driving through White Mountain Apache Reservation, and I accidentally hit a deer on the hoof, and the police came by, the tribal police, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna call one of my relatives. They'll come over and just, you know, butcher it and give the meat out to the relatives." So they're like right on it, you know, when it comes to butchering
Yeah.
deer when the opportunity comes.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you. Yes, I hope we do
Yeah.
cross paths.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Yes.
And have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
And look forward to future conversations.
Alrighty, bye-bye. Thanks again.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thanks
you.
again to you both. Have a good afternoon.